Rami Lavi, Vince D'Amato, Vinny and Rami, the Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. What's up, dude? How you doing? That was fun. We just watched the Mets game, or at least I watched it. You listened to it. Kind of ironic. I'm the radio guy, right?
Cubs game. Yeah. Can't just say the Mets game. Come on. No, if you haven't been following
I'd say
it,
Mets game.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it's interesting because it's Mets Cubs and you're a Cubs fan. So
yeah, and you're a New York guy. Do you lean one way? I think I've asked you, but do you lean one way? Are you allowed to like? Because I feel like you kind of have to pick a side.
I'm a Yankee fan, and I don't try and hide it necessarily.
You seem to have a lot of love for them.
I have to. Well, here's the thing: with unlike any other team with baseball, because it's so daily, there's going to be a time where I'm going to be on the air, and the biggest story in town is Mets, and you can't have zero credibility in that spot. So I feel like I have to talk Mets. Sure. You know what I mean? I have to like the Mets. And as you know, my friends always, they mess with me and tell me that I'm really a Mets fan, and I'm just not willing to admit it. But
closeted.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a Yankee fan. It is what it is. I love the Yankees. They frustrate me sometimes, whereas the Mets, I always compare it. I say the Mets to me are like my nieces. I have two nieces. They're fun, like little kids to just, when I want to go over there and they're cute and whatever. Yeah. But then when it's time to take care of them, if one of them needs to use the bathroom or eat something or starts crying, it's like, all right, bye, I'm out. So once the Mets start doing Metsian things, I'm gone. When it's fun, when it's going well, I pull up. But yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't been following, this series has been awesome. We had the Severino with the almost no that was broken up, and then Morel hit the go-ahead on Monday, and then yesterday DJ Stewart with his monster home run, and then today photo finish at the end too. I mean, yeah, it's been a great series. So tomorrow,
yeah, and if you're not following, so Shota Imanaga had to start today, and he was one of my headlines because he's been for 4 years, $53 million. The steal of any free agent. Forget about the fact that I was looking at him versus Yamamoto. Like Yamamoto was supposed to be, I know he's younger, so it's different, but this prize free agent coming over, and now Shota's stolen the show from everyone. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, if not the best. He's now what did I say earlier? 5-0 with a .78 ERA, something like that. Like that is ridiculous. He's been awesome. And you asked me right before we got on, is he a sell high? Because we have a buy low, sell high a little bit later. No, dude, this guy is for real.
Yeah, I like that. And it's almost like, what are you going to sell him for that you're going to get in return? That you need pitching, you got to win, right? And so I think he's just as good as advertised and probably better than advertised. And yeah, 100%. I said it right when they signed him for 4 years, $53 million. I mean, you look at some of the pitching landscape of, Frankie Montas signed for 1 year, $16 million. Like, some of the contracts, give me that 453 all day long. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember what the final contract was for Montgomery, but yeah, and Blake Snell, like some of these contracts, I know those ended up, I think, both being shorter term, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, and the problem for the Cubs has been their bullpen and the Cubs bullpen, and Alzolay, again, no matter what inning you put him in, he stays ass, right? Like that was the other headline. They put him in the 6th, and they gives up the 2-run home run in the 6th or whatever it was. So it's like, it doesn't have to be the 9th. You can't pitch him anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we don't have to dive too much into the Cubs, but if Dansby Swanson makes that play, we're out of the inning. There was a play earlier where
but to me, like Alzolay is like, is he worth keeping on your roster and like holding out hope that he'll get the closer job back? And right now, I think no.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, I think it depends on a lot of things. It depends on your league size, right? I mean, or if it's just a saves holds league. If it's saves holds league, yeah, I would drop him. There's no need. If it's a saves league, maybe you're holding on hope because the Cubs still have the issue, right? It's not like he's out and Neris is in and Neris is dominating. Like Neris hasn't been a stud closer either, and so that's why I texted you right before this. Does New York have any? They have any guys that they can ship over because our bullpen's been awful just altogether. So if
you can have Clay Holmes, he picks it up, cardiac machine. I mean, but he's good. He's locked down. But I said he's death by the million dribbler. He gives up like these slow rolling ground balls that find holes, and 3 of them in a row, that's a run.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I wouldn't give up that much. Like I'm giving up, 75% of hope. But if you need the saves and you got nobody else, I see holding.
I have a couple more baseball headlines, and a couple of them are fantasy related. One, And if you have any injuries, because I thought I saw a couple of more pitching injuries, so maybe we should touch on that. I know it's the same topic, but maybe just bring up the names.
Mhm.
As far as the MLB uniforms, Jeff Passan put out a memo that they're going to be fixing that. So we spent a lot of time talking about that in the preseason during spring training and whatnot. So it's funny. I think it was like a private memo where MLB was never willing to admit that they were wrong about that. They were like, no, the uniforms are fine. Everyone loves the uniform. And then private memo gets sent out. Hey, we're fixing the uniforms. Like that's typical baseball. If you have any comment on that, you could say it. Otherwise, I mean, that's just kind of wanted to throw
No,
that
I'm
out there.
good. Yeah, no,
More of a baseball update. The other thing was Ryan Noda was sent down to AAA by the Oakland A's. Did you see that?
no, I missed it.
Yeah, and again, I get that he's not been good. This is another scenario where it's just like this is malpractice. This is a guy who might be on some fantasy teams. This is a guy who's not like a total like he hasn't been good this year, but he's a quality Major League Baseball player. And it's like you're not I get you're not trying to win. Still took 2-4 from the Yankees at Yankee Stadium, which was crazy. But like I get that you're not trying to win, but you got to try harder than that. Like this is a competitive sport. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they've been really weird. Because I don't know if Brent Rooker's back. I know he was out for a little while. The
I
Asturias
know
thing sending him
he came
down, like
back, right? So
Rooker did. Okay.
no, I mean Ruiz came back.
Oh, right. Well, only because
Yeah.
who was it? Lawrence. Someone else got hurt. Was it Lawrence Butler? I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it's been a really weird shuffle for them. That you're absolutely right. I don't understand kind of what they're doing.
Last thing, and this is more about us than about anything else. I'll be honest and straightforward where my intentions are here. Have we checked up on the Pete Alonso versus Matt Olson update in a bit? No, we have not.
Probably not. No, right. But I imagine Pete's doing better because Matt is not doing that great.
Yeah, so Pete
Yeah.
Alonso, the on base is 323. That went up because he did get hit by the pitch there, so that'll help the on base. He does have a stolen base. He has 8 home runs, 15 RBIs, 20 runs scored. He could have had 21. And then 317 for Alonso on base, which is not great. 15 RBIs, three home runs, only 3 home runs and 14 runs scored. And he's been struggling of late. 3 for his last 19 at the plate.
It's kind of
3
weird
for his
too.
last 38 at the plate. Sorry.
All of the Braves have been kind of struggling. I don't know. It's kind of weird, right? We see a lot of these teams like the Astros, right? Almost everyone in the Astros is struggling. A lot of people on the
remember
Braves
when
are
everyone thought it was a
struggling.
big deal that the Yankees swept the Astros opening week? It's like, oh, well, the Yankees swept the Astros might suck.
Yeah. So, and you also missed a big injury too. I don't think we've talked since Mike Trout went down with a
Yes, I knew I was missing
meniscus.
something. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a big one, right? I mean, talk about one of the greatest of our generation who he was finally putting it together. He was finally doing it.
Which is so weird to say about Mike Trout that he's finally putting it together. But this has been the issue. Whenever he's healthy, he's great. He's just never healthy.
Now, do you think where does he fall if let's say his career kind of goes this way, plays a few games, does amazing, gets hurt, and that kind of goes on for the next 5-7 years or whatever. Where does he fall in the Hall of Fame conversation? Like, is this something that's going to keep him from being?
I don't think he is yet.
Okay.
Like so it's actually funny. Did I tell you about this? That I started listening. My boss moved down to Philadelphia because he's originally from there. He was hosting he's hosting the afternoon show on WIP, which is the radio station in Philly, sports talk radio. I listened because I really like my boss. Is the guy who hired me, who's really helped me along with my career. And so I wanted to listen to hear his show on WIP. So I listened to his show, especially because the Knicks are playing Philly now. I'm getting off track, but you get the point. The Knicks are playing the Sixers now, so I want to hear a Philly perspective on the series as well. Yeah. And they had this promo they were running called Ask Out Trout. Like, Mike, come home to Philly. You're a Philly guy. Come home.
Wow.
Play center field, for the Phillies. Complete the dynasty. Let's win. Let's get over the hump. You'll be that missing piece, from the last couple of years. If Mike Trout in this offseason goes to the Phillies and wins a World Series in 2025 and has just 2-3 solid years where he stays healthy and he's 80% of former Mike Trout, he's a Hall of Famer and wins. He's a Hall of Famer. This guy hasn't won a playoff game in his life. And
he has to win.
His numbers aren't like, at the end of the day, as good as he was in his peak, We see this all the time in the Hall of Fame, whether you like it or not. And I don't love it, but compilers always make the Hall of Fame over guys who are really great for a short stint. That's just how baseball is. And he doesn't have the compiler stats. He doesn't have enough of those stats.
Yeah, so I would say his good years, I mean, and this is where it's like maybe,
His good years are as good as anyone ever.
But I'm saying I'm talking 2012 to 2019. So 7 years of phenomenal production that doesn't put him over.
And
I'm just asking.
Did he play 150 plus games in those 7 years?
So
No.
2012,
Even some of those years were like 130,
157, 157, 159, 159, 114, 140, 134, and then 53, 36.
Okay. So before the 114,
Mm-hmm.
how many years was it before the 114? Because after that, you said something in the 130s.
And 4 years of 150 plus, and then a 139.
That's not enough. It's just not to me. It's not enough,
and that's fair, and that's understandable. I don't know. Like I think he's a Hall of Famer because here's my argument.
He's the greatest player I've ever seen. Like,
and that's to me, baseball. Like the Hall of Fame is like it's almost like the history of the game. And so, like for example, do you think Shohei Ohtani is, if he retired at the end of this year, is he a Hall of Famer? Like if his career just ends? And I almost have to say yes because he has changed. But that's my point. Is he has changed the game, and I think Mike Trout has done something. I don't want to say
the
similar,
difference is. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean that's kind of it. It's just like it's guys who have just completely dominated or transformed. I mean, it's the reason why people think Michael Jordan's the best ever, right? I mean, 6 years or 7 year dominance, and he wasn't.
But Michael was great for longer than that. He has the numbers. Michael has the numbers.
But what do people always say?
He's up there when you look at points,
right?
when you look at assists, when you look at, and obviously championships. That's the difference. He has 6 championships.
Right.
Mike Trout doesn't have a playoff series win.
But again, I mean, it's tough. It's more of a team, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But again, we don't have to. Yeah. That's just.
This is a great conversation, not for a fantasy show. I apologize to everyone, but like,
it's fun.
It's a great conversation. I don't think, and I'm trying to like, based on the history of the MLB Hall of Fame, I don't think he is. Do I think he's a Hall of Fame baseball player? Yes. Do I think he's had a Hall of Fame career based on what we've seen go into the Hall of Fame? Will he make it? No. If this is a career-ending injury, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
So what about
I do think I guess I mean to say I do think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he'll make it into the Hall of Fame. All right. Corbin Burns got his first loss of the season. First loss as an Oriole to the Yankees, 2-0. Luis Hill with another dominant outing. Another guy that maybe we talked about. But remember, this is what I was going to say. I tried to say this to you earlier before our technical difficulties. My difficulty saying that word. But before, when Mike Trout was hot, I titled the episode, "Should You Trade Mike Trout?" Right? I don't know if you recall that I titled the episode, "Should You like why you should trade Mike Trout?" And that was why. So not to take a massive victory lap here, but I was right. And just like I was about Pete Alonso and Matt Olson, just like I've been about like mostly everything other than the guys I drafted in that one league that we're in together. I'm right about everything. And so everything's coming up Rami because as much as I don't root for injuries or want Mike Trout to be hurt, but I told you to trade him because this is what happens to Mike Trout. So let's see if I could be right about a few other things. As you see on Vince's left or on the right side, if you're watching this of our screen, right there, we are going to talk about who's hot, who's not, buy low, sell high, our league update, which maybe we skip that this week, honestly, because we've done so much other stuff at the top here. But we'll do the prospect report and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, Vince, if you want to kick us off with who's hot, I have a few. You might have a few. So let's go back and forth.
Yeah, I got quite a few. I'll narrow it down to 3, and I will maybe do an honorable mention of just real quick one guy. But my first who's hot is a pitcher for the Kansas City Royals, and that is Seth Lugo.
Seth Lugo, former Met.
Yeah. His last 2 starts have been dominant. I don't know what Kansas City has in their pitching water over there, but they've been doing great. 14 innings pitched, 7 in each with just 1 earned run, 17 strikeouts and 4 walks in those 2 starts. And so far over the 7 starts he's had 6 quality starts. So good on Seth Lugo. He's a top 10 pitcher right now. And his only non-quality start was one in Baltimore, or against Baltimore, where he gave up 4 runs in 5 and a third. It's Baltimore. I'm going to give him a pass on that. And that's baseball. So Seth Lugo has been dominant. I fully anticipate him keeping it up. So get as much Seth Lugo as you can.
That's why the Luis Hill start tonight is almost even more impressive, because 6 and a third, no runs against Baltimore, only 1 walk. Like, it's a tough lineup in Baltimore, and he did a really good job. So, if you're buying stock, I've been kind of in and out on him all year, but I mean, he's been trending up. I get it. He's going to go through his struggles. It's like his first full year starting, and we'll see what happens when Garrett Cole comes back to the rotation. But at least till he comes back, I would buy that stock. A guy who's been hot, another pitcher. I'll go pitcher first since you went pitcher first. Kyle Gibson of the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't know if you know this. His last 2 starts, 13 innings, 15 strikeouts, a 1.38 ERA, and only a 1 WHIP, and he has a win in those 13 innings. So really good stuff. That all came last week. So Kyle Gibson, and he's only rostered in like 19% of Yahoo leagues. So he's available if you want him, and he's been really good of late. And really over the last 2 weeks, he's been very solid. 19 innings, 18 strikeouts, 1.42 ERA.
Yeah, he's a guy. He's typically streamer territory, but now he's maybe, you keep him on your roster because you're starting him 75. I'm not going to start him against the Dodgers, but against 75% of teams, he's warranting a start.
Again, worth it.
My next guy is a guy that if anyone listened to the show it would have been Monday. If you listen to the show on Monday, you would have heard me call out this guy. I think it was Monday. Willie Castro is a guy that I called out, if you remember, for the Minnesota Twins, right? And since April 24th, so 8 games, he has gone 16 for 35. So he has hit a 4.57 average, just 1 home run, but 5 doubles, 3 triples, 7 runs, 8 RBIs. Guy's been on a mission. And again, multi-positional eligibility, third base, shortstop, outfield. Can't beat it. Go get Willie Castro because he may still be out there.
I'm so proud of myself because I know you so well. I had him in my hot, and then I moved him out of my hot because I knew you would. I was like, oh, this is such a Vince guy.
I love him. Love him.
Yeah, so I moved him out. Mine, Rafael Devers. Slow start to the season, but again, his last week, 571 on base in the last week. He scored 5 runs too. Again, not the best lineup, but this dude can go on a bender himself. He only has 7 RBIs on the year and 3 home runs. So the production's not there, but he's doubled in the last week alone. He's doubled his run score total. He had 5 going into the week last week, and he had 5 in the last week. So, and again, this is the last 7 days when I say in the last week. So he's been hot, 5 runs scored, a homer, 2 RBIs. And again, the 571 on base. Obviously you're rostering him anyway, and you're starting him anyway, but worth keeping track of. Like, if this guy can carry you for a bit, he's one of those guys. And when he gets hot like this, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and that's why we do have to remember too, it is still very early, right? Again, a guy can double his totals in a week or less time at this point still. So
in 7 days, he doubled his totals. Yeah.
So my next,
it's May 1st, by the way, is it? That's today, right?
Yeah.
By the time you're listening to it, it's probably May 2nd.
It's almost May the 4th. My second is left fielder for the San Diego Padres. Not
you would be a Star Wars guy, by the way.
Well, who wouldn't be? Come on. It is Jurickson Profar, a guy who almost felt like an afterthought for a lot of people in a lot of leagues and a lot of teams. Also, since April 24th, since that's the same date I used for Willie Castro, he is 15 for 30, setting 500. That's even better. That's 200 points better. He's hitting 500 since April 24th, the last week. He's got 2 home runs, 7 runs, 6 RBIs. And his season line also looks phenomenal. He's hitting 342, 431, 523, a 953 OPS. Jurickson Profar has been hot, and I don't see why he couldn't keep going either.
Well, I was going to use him as my sell high, but I didn't.
Sure.
But I did think, again, he was another guy I looked at. That's a Vince guy. You want to talk typical Rami pick here? Who's hot? The left side of the Philadelphia Phillies infield. Alec Bowman, Trey Turner, the 2 of them combined. I know we talked about Bowman last episode, but I was like, wait, we haven't done a hot or not because we missed last week's midweek episode. So I was like, you can't not talk about, he's been the hottest player in baseball still. Like, still 500, batting 500 in the last 7 days and like really the last 2 weeks. So, and if you look at some of his peripherals, I was just, I don't know what you call it. I forget the word, but I was on a Baseball Savant, And it's like Baseball Savant was basically like, I just I'm just curious. I looked up Alec Bowman. Baseball Savant was like, Alec Bowman's the best player in baseball. And I was like, cool. I like that. I love that. And speaking of, for one of my buy lows, it's not even low, but I added him. I had someone here. Also, Baseball Savant legend this year. So before we get to the buy low and sell high, we talked about the hot. Got to talk about the not. Who's not hot?
I do want to give just two quick hot honorable mentions. Willie
Please.
Adames. Willie Adames has 3 home runs in the last 2 games, and I think he went 4 for 4 today with 8 RBIs over the last 2 games. So Adames has been hot. And then Kirby Yates, a guy that we talked about a couple weeks ago about getting that Texas Rangers closer role, looks like he's got it. He hasn't
Time
had
to drop Leclerc.
many opportunities, but yes, 100% time to drop Leclerc. Kirby Yates looks like he's locked in, and he has yet to give up a run in 11 appearances so far. So go Kirby Yates. So my first not. And I kind of stick to a little bit of a theme here with a lot of these younger guys, because there's a lot of young guys who are not hot. And my first one kind of hurts me in a lot of ways, but it is Wyatt Langford. Not that he's been horrible. He hasn't been like the worst player in baseball, right? But just a lot of people were picking him near the top 100, especially when they found out that he was going to come up. He was a top 100 pick pretty easily, right? When the news came that he was going to break camp, and his average is hanging around 240. His underlying stuff, it's all like middle of the order stuff, middle of the pack. He's just not like popping like we would have expected. And so that's why I'm saying he's a not hot guy, because again, I just think we expected a lot from him. Maybe like I just thought of like a Devers earlier in the season, where you just have big expectations and he's not filling it. So Wyatt Langford is my first cold guy.
My first cold, and I like to do this because I like, as we talked about with Olsen and Pete, I like to follow up on guys that we talked about earlier, like you just did with Kirby Yates. Garrett Crochet, who we talked about, like, hey, what's the deal? Is this guy actually this good? Well, over the last 2 weeks, 12 innings, still has the strikeout numbers with 16, but a 10.5 ERA. So he's come back down to earth. I see he's back down to only 49% rostered, and he's the 500th ranked player in fantasy right now. So he's not been good. He's been, what he's been in his career, which is inconsistent, has strikeout stuff, but is going to give up runs. And so, if you were one of these people who listened to our show and was like, hey, pick him up, maybe it's time to drop him, or maybe ride the wave, see what happens. But he's not a guy that I'm putting in, making sure he's keyed into my lineup every week for every start, because you're going to get this from him. And this is what we warned when people did get off to that hot start the first couple of weeks of April.
Yeah, I remember he had that 7-inning start against Atlanta that he just looked dominant. And
right, shoved.
I'm like, you kind of said it. I'm like, I had a friend text me, Crochet is a stud. Why'd you tell me not to grab him? I never said don't at that point, but don't expect this, right? And obviously it's a long season. He can have some more great starts. Maybe he's a streaming option, but not a guy that I want on my roster if I don't need him to be. My next cold is Jackson Churio. Again, another guy who has really hurt me in quite a few leagues. I did draft him in too many redraft, but Dynasty for sure. I was really expecting him to kind of take a step forward, and it's obviously a long season, but he just hasn't, and he may be losing playing time at some point in the near future, if he hasn't already. And it kind of sucks because he started off really well. He had hits in 11 of his 13 games, and he's now hitting just over 200, and his underlying stuff does not look good. So maybe it's just a transition period. It's a new environment, a lot of new things happening for him. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of doubt in Dynasty. If this opens up even a very small window in Dynasty, I am all over it. But Jackson Churio is cold right now. No way around that.
My cold is another guy we talked about to start the season. Randy Arozarena he has a 220 on base on the season. And he's 2 for his last 21, 2 hits in his last 21 at bats. One of those hits happens to have been a home run. So the numbers look a little inflated with production. He has a home run, RBI, 3 RBIs, a run scored, but 2 for his last 21. And this is a guy who we talked about, whether it's the World Baseball Classic, whether it's the playoffs, similar to Adolis Garcia, right? Shows up and shows out and is great. But then you forget, in these limited short spurts. Some of these guys feed off that energy. Kind of talked about it last week with Javi Baez, who, by the way, on base 375 is in the last week. So I'm not wrong. I'm not willing to take the L on it yet. I know he hasn't had a monster week, but he hasn't been bad. Just wait for the New York series, I promise. He's hitting a homer in New York. Anyway, but Randy Arozarena in short spurts again gets fired up for these big matchups, big series, and goes off. As a whole, he's not as good a baseball player as he's, as people think of him as. And that's my problem with him, and that's what he's proven this year.
See, I almost wanted to put a Arozarena as a buy low because I do believe in Cowboy. But then I looked at his Savant page and looking at the trend over the last few years, his underlying stuff has never really been that great. Like 2023, he had some really good stuff, but before then, he was just kind of okay. And I think his surface numbers just looked a lot better. And maybe this is just the ebb and flow of those underlying stuff kind of catching up with the surface, right? He looked great, and now it's time for him to look bad as far as, just his numbers, surface numbers. So good call out there. I thought about him as a buy low, but I just couldn't do it. So I think he's a good cold guy.
I think he's just a cold player. I don't think he's a buy low. I don't have him there.
No, I agree.
Who's your last cold?
My last cold is a guy that I told you to buy maybe a couple weeks ago. I want to, I'm human. I'll make mistakes, right? Ivan Herrera for the St. Louis Cardinals has been ice cold, and it looks like he has lost his playing time as well. Obviously, Wilson Contreras coming back, looking great. Since April 19th, he is 2 for 18 with 6 strikeouts, which, if you realize April 19th, you're like, hey, Vince, that was a couple weeks ago. And how does Willie Castro have 35 at-bats since April 24th and Ivan Herrera has 19 or 18 since April 19th? It's because he has no playing time. He's not playing. And so on top of being a poor hitter right now, he's just not playing. He is a pretty easy draft for me in almost every format. And he is ice cold, but could pick it up. Again, he's got a great bat, but just not right now. And the path to playing time is not an easy one.
This is a week-to-week sport. It's a week-to-week league. Things happen quickly. So like you just said that, my guy also, if you look at his numbers from the last 2 weeks, he's on base 350, 4 home runs, 9 RBI, 6 runs scored. You look at his numbers from the last 7 days, he's 1 for his last 18. That's Cal Riley. So by no means am I telling you Cal Riley's not going to be great. He's going to be great. He's been really good this year. He has 6 homers, 13 RBIs, 12 runs scored, on base, a little low, but like I said, over the last 2 weeks, it's 350. Considering that it's 150 in the last week, that's really good. So 1 for his last 18, that's where it kind of like sucks, including 0 for 4 today. So Cal Riley is cold, but he'll get hot again. But I don't want to limit this to people who are going to be cold forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
so I do think he'll turn it around. But if you're paying attention, Cal Riley, maybe if you have another option, 2-catcher league, or you have 2 catchers on your roster and you can plug someone else in, maybe plug someone else in for a couple of games because he's been really cold for the last week.
Yeah, that's a good call. And do you want to should we skip our league up to, we got buy low, sell
Yeah, we
high.
got we still got buy low, sell high. I'm going to be buying the stock of 2 guys, so I'll start with one and then I'll throw to you.
Sure.
Bo Bichette, who has not been great this year. And let me just find the numbers here. Really, over the last week, he's 2 for his last 21, so it's been slow. He only has 1 home run on the season, 3 stolen bases, on base at 270, which is, uncharacteristically low. I still think at some point that lineup midsummer is going to get hot, and he's going to be a guy. So if there's a team that's like, hey, Bo Bichette has not been cutting it for me and wants to offer you Bo Bichette in a trade, and maybe you could, and that's the point of buy low, right? Get guys who, it all evens out. This is what we're talking about here. It's fantasy baseball. It's baseball in general. It evens out. But when it comes to fantasy, you need to get those numbers when they're up, right? So maybe this is just a down stretch for Bo Bichette, and you can trade for him now and you get him for the second half of the season, or really the last 2/3 of the season when he's hot. So I would trade for Bo Bichette if the offer is good and you could maybe get him at a better value than you would have gotten him earlier in the year.
Yeah, this is just a lesson for fantasy baseball in general. You kind of have to think of players as stocks, right? You want to buy the dips and sell the peaks, right? That's all that, that's it sounds cold and analytical, and maybe some people don't like to play that way. I want to watch my best players or my players win on my team. Fine. But if you want to be good, you have to treat them as stocks, right? And so, like,
And that's
for
why we do this
example,
segment every week, right? That's why we do a
yeah,
buy low, sell high segment every week.
yeah. Like, for example, if I can get Corbin Carroll for 80 cents on the dollar right now, I'm probably trading for him, right? Maybe
Here's
we'll
another
see.
guy I'm
Depends
looking
on,
at. I
yeah.
I am. I'm with you. And I was gonna say I was gonna maybe see if he shows some signs of life, but no, I agree. I would
Well,
too. If you're gonna, yeah,
once he
80
shows
cents
a
on the
sign of
dollar.
life, that's it. The window's closed. Like, that's it.
Exactly.
And so you have to buy when
That's
it
why I
looks
said
like
trade
there's no
Mike
hope.
Trout a couple weeks
Mhm.
ago,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because that's the whole point. He's showing you how good he can be, and that's when you trade him away.
yeah. So my first buy low is a guy who did just hit his first home run the other day, and that is Alex Bergman. His underlying stuff looks okay. Like, it's not. I'm not going to sell you that he's hitting the ball super hard. It's just okay. The reason why you buy Alex Bregman is the reason that you've always bought him, is that he is an OBP machine. He's still got great plate discipline metrics. His contact metrics have been just okay, but you combine that with the fact that Houston, I think, is only going to get better. Like, I think
They
they're
can't
just
get worse.
all right playing horrible, and so you put him in the middle of the lineup again. OBP God. I think they're only getting better. Those counting stats are going to come up. His home runs are going to come up. I'm buying Alex Bregman all day long.
Yeah, I fully agree with that call. It's a good call. That's one of the ones where we've talked about this so many times. We listen to this show. We love guys who are on teams that we believe are good teams that we believe haven't reached their ceiling yet. So Bregman definitely one of those guys. My other one, and this is just lesson to you guys. Sometimes just watching baseball and listening can really help you with fantasy baseball, because I was just watching the Yankee game and I had it on in the background. I was busy earlier and I just had it on in the background, and I heard Joe Girardi say, "Hey, here's Ryan O'Hearn, who's had a really good season." And he's someone who we talked about on this show, saying, when are some of these other guys going to get playing time? Because, he's playing first base. He's also playing the outfield. He's been playing well and he's having a really good year. But then Girardi said he's actually been extremely unlucky, where his barrel rate, his hard hit rate, his every one of his metrics, like we talked about earlier, says he should be even having an even better year than he's having. So in a weird way, a guy who maybe people are trying to sell him because they think that, oh, it's only a matter of time before he loses playing time, or hey, it's only a matter of time before he doesn't keep this up. Actually, he's been underperforming relative to his peripherals and some of his like numbers. And so this guy should actually be a guy that you should buy, because the Orioles they're trying to win. So sure, they're trying to get some of the young guys here, but O'Hearn's got that job on lock right now. And I feel like he hasn't even hit his peak of what he can be and will be this season.
I think that's a great call. I picked up Ryan O'Hearn and I have put CES on my bench. Finally, officially, it happened. Because and I think O'Hearn is a good call out.
That's big of you. That's a big.
It is big of me. O'Hearn's rostered in 61% of leagues. You got to get him now because, like you said, he's getting hot, or he's winning that job, and his stock is only rising. And he's got the dual eligibility, first base, outfield. We love to see that.
Yep. I love that.
My sell high, I got one, but it kind of. Sorry, what? Go ahead.
No, I wanted to see if he was rostered in my league, so you could go ahead. No, he's not. I'll pick him up. I'm gonna pick him up.
There you go.
I'm gonna pick him up right now as we speak.
By your words.
You know who I'm gonna drop? I'm gonna drop Jose Leclerc.
Look at that, full circle. We love to see it. My first, or my my sell high.
No longer eligible to pick up today. I'll have to wait till after.
Do it tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Remind me. Hope this podcast doesn't drop before someone else in my league is gonna snag him.
My sell high is Mike Tauchman of the Chicago Cubs. Love Mike Tauchman. I think he's a great fourth outfielder. And in the same breath, I will say PCA as well. If you can sell PCA high, I probably would do that. Really for the only reason of, I think once Cody Bellinger comes back and Seiya Suzuki comes back, they're not going to get enough playing time to warrant starting for fantasy. And that's too bad, because Mike Tauchman has done nothing but earn that job. And if it were up to me, like maybe he plays first base or something. Maybe he's a third baseman. I don't know. His bat certainly deserves to be in the lineup. He's hitting 303 through 436, 949 OPS. But again, we need playing time, and he's got it for now. But once again, Bellinger comes back, Suzuki comes back, which they're on the cusp of doing so soon. He's just going to lose playing time, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, Mike Tauchman has been great, but definitely a sell high for me, and PCA as well.
For me, a sell high, and this is a guy, again, you talked about full circle, Willie Castro. I get it. He's really good. And he's the typical guy I love. He's going to get on base. He's going to steal bases, and he's got eligibility all over the place. The thing for me is he's not stealing as many bases as he did last year. And as good as he's been, you can probably sell him as he's been a 450 on base guy the last couple of weeks. Whereas in reality, he's probably closer to a 330 on base guy. So if people are willing to buy how hot he is now, and this is what we talked about with the stocks, like you just said, and you mentioned all his numbers earlier, he's extremely hot right now. So if you want to buy that, if somebody in your league wants to buy that, I'd be willing to potentially take a loss, assuming that he's going to have a dip. So just like I said with Mike Trout, that yes, I could end up being the fool here who gave away Mike Trout and he was MVP Mike Trout for a full year. I believe that he's going to have that dip eventually. In his case, it was an injury. Willie Castro, he may end up just continuing to ascend, and this becomes the player who he is. I don't think he's that. I think he'll eventually have his dip and go back, and it'll even out. I don't want to have him on my roster when he's having that 200 stretch for 6 weeks because he had a 400 stretch for 3 weeks to where it evens out. That's just me. And even with this hot streak, he hasn't been stealing enough bases. So if he's not stealing enough bases when he's getting on at a 450 clip, when's he going to be stealing bases for a guy who's still 33 last year? That concerns me. So I would sell high. I would try, and if you have him, say, hey, look, this Willie Castro has been incredible, and he's only rostered in 24% of leagues in Yahoo leagues. But if you picked him up and you're one of the 15% of people who picked him up last week, maybe you pick him up and you're like, try and flip him real quick and get an easy, scrappy guy who could just plug and play in your lineup every day. That's not going to have some of those ups and downs that Willie Castro is likely going to have.
And I'll throw this one at you. I think this is a trade that you could absolutely pull off. If you have Willie Castro, find the Alex Bergman owner. There's a chance you could flip Willie Castro for Alex Bergman, and I would probably do that because, again, it's a long season. Bregman's done it. And you mentioned the speed. Willie Castro, his sprint speed for stealing 33 bases last year, sprint speed's not like off the charts. Like, I'm actually kind of surprised he's still 30 bases.
Yep.
72nd percentile. That's not like blazing fast, right? And so maybe he does get up to 10, 15, but to get to 30 again, like you said, he's on base. Where is it, right? And so if we haven't seen it yet, maybe it's a bad sign. Yeah, if I could flip Willie Castro for Bregman, I would.
I'm going out of order here. I apologize.
We're
skipping our league update. Like we said, we did a little too much just chit chat at the beginning. The Mike Trout Hall of Fame conversation. If you missed that, it was really fun. So go to the full episode to watch that. But real quick, I'm going to use this opportunity to ask that. I don't know if you got any mailbag questions. I looked on YouTube. I didn't see any, and I forgot to check my DMs. But here's a mailbag question for you. So we have to do a mailbag question.
Sure.
Who would you trade if you were let's say you're the Willie Castro owner? Would you trade Willie Castro for Alex Bergman? Or if you're the Alex Bergman owner, would you trade Alex Bergman for Willie Castro?
No, yeah, give me Bregman throughout the rest of the year.
Yep.
And it's hard, right? Because I love Willie Castro, and maybe if I need like a shortstop, I could see that being the case. But yeah, I believe in Bregman. Again, we've seen it as underlying. Again, great plate discipline. We have to remember it is such a long season. We're when did the season start? A month ago, 4 weeks ago, right?
Probably a little more at this point.
All
right?
of May,
May 1st, so
all of June, all of July, all of August, and then September. Is probably when. So that's 4 months. We're 20% of the way done. I'm giving these guys time to heat up and cool off and come back to the norms because, So I would take Bregman over Castro in a vacuum, even with the.
All right,
the
Vinny.
Start.
Let's close it out with your prospect report.
Sure. So quite a interesting week in the prospect world, and again, I'll stick to the stuff that kind of will have an impact of fantasy this year. The first couple should probably already have been acted on. If they haven't in your league, go act on it. Joey Loperfido for the Houston Astros has been called up. He was
This
mashing
is your
in
guy. This
the
is your
minor
guy.
leagues. He was mashing. And so,
He's
again,
a good
I don't
looking
expect
fella
him.
too.
He's so good looking, right?
Yeah.
There's another good looking guy who we'll talk about in just a minute. But I don't expect him to do the same thing he's doing in the minor leagues, but he should absolutely be a productive player and a useful fantasy player. I think he's an add in pretty much every league size and depth, unless it's super, super shallow or something like that. But Looper Fido. And the other one is Jordan Beck, who was brought up for the Colorado Rockies. Maybe I'm looking at him in 12s, like deep 12s, definitely 15s, 15s and bigger. Obviously going to Coors is a huge thing, right? Huge BABIP boost, and he's got power, he's got speed, fantasy friendly profile, in a great park. Love Jordan Beck for fantasy. And then the two guys who are on the cusp. The first one, good looking guy, Paul Skeens. We love Paul Skeens, love the mustache, love everything he's doing. And the reason why I bring him up is because he was stretched out to 6 innings in his last start. And so that was kind of, throughout the first part of the year, he's throwing 3 innings, 3 innings, 3 innings. And so now that he's up to 6, I think that's kind of a sign, hey, he's ready for this workload. We're going to bring him up.
And Paul Skeen's proof that some guys can have it all.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Continue. Go ahead.
There's talk. I saw someone post earlier today that it looks like he would line up to face actually the Cubs on May 12th. Could be his first
that
major league
offense is
start.
ass. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, they haven't been
good without Bellinger and Suzuki.
And so maybe this week go get Paul Skeens if he's still available. He absolutely could be. Because people get fatigue holding on to him. I think now is the time when he could come up. And the next one we may not see for a little bit, but keep it on your radar. Maybe from deep league. Cade Horton was brought up to AAA. Again, another guy who's getting stretched out. And with all of these injuries to the Cubs, maybe we could see him make an appearance. If Hendricks comes back and Hendricks sucks, there could be an opening. Although Assad's been throwing well, Talion's been throwing well, Imanaga, obviously, we're getting Steele back soon. So we may not see him, but keep it on your radar. It just takes one injury, and Horton could be up very soon because there's no doubt he's a better pitcher than Kyle Hendricks already. So keep Cade Horton on your radar. And that closes out my prospect report.
Well, before you fully close out the prospect report, I want to ask you about Jack Leiter, and I want to ask you about Jackson Holiday. So those two guys obviously come up, frustrating start, sent down. What's the vibe on them? Do we know when is there any projection on them coming back or anything? What are you hearing?
I'm not hearing too much about Leiter in particular. Jackson Holiday, I think, had a 3-hit day. Was it yesterday? So
He just sucks at Major League Baseball. He's good at baseball still.
He's a quad A player, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Holiday will come up
like Estevan Florial. He's basically Estevan Florial.
I waited for Florial for so long. I waited for him for so long.
He mashed in the minors. It was like, oh my God, this guy's hitting 600 in spring training. You have to bring him on the Major League roster. Then the Yankees would call him up. And then it's like, oh, well, here he is again, batting 036. And they jerked him around like they did with the redhead kid from Clint Frazier. Where they're starting him and they're sitting him and they're starting him and sitting him. And it's like, this is a guy who's playing every day in the minors. So how much does that play into it? It sucked. But I'm kidding. Obviously, when I say Jackson Holiday is Estevan Florial, but at this point in his career, at the age of 19, he might be Estevan Florial.
So I haven't heard anything about Jack Leiter, but I'm assuming they'll give Jackson Holiday if he continues to hit like this a month, and give him time to kind of get comfortable. Maybe around the All-Star break, a little before the All-Star break, I could see it. There's no reason to rush him right now. I think they're playing just fine. And it's kind of weird, right? We just saw Heston Kjerstad come up. And what does he come up to do? Nothing. He plays one game and then he doesn't play at all. Like, I get it. They do this, right? They did this with Colton Cowser last year and Westberg for a little while. I don't get why they do it, but they didn't seem to take that approach with Jackson Holiday. He came up and he played right away. And so if Holiday does come up again, I expect him to play right away because, again, he is going to be the best player on that team, maybe besides Gunnar Henderson for a long time. And, I haven't heard much about Jack. I think Jack Leiter, he's just going to have a few good starts. And if he does, the Rangers could really use the pitching right now. So he could be up.
Yeah.
Just watch his starts.
Kjerstad thing. The Kjerstad thing is so weird. And it's not the like again, we talk about this balance that the Orioles have where they're still trying to bring in all these young guys and develop them while they're an extremely competitive, arguably one of the best teams in baseball, right? Like the Phillies were the first to 20 wins. I think that the Orioles are right there also, right? So
Yeah.
again, this is it's a weird thing. And by the way, the Yankees were the first to 10 wins. How's that working out for them, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, they haven't been great since. Aaron Judge. I mean, my God. We can end on this. You still like you talk about buy low, sell high. You, you do you buy Aaron Judge stock?
Depends on the
There's another
price.
mailbag question.
What's the price? Who are you offering
A,
me?
a lot. He's Aaron freaking Judge.
Okay, he's hitting
Like if
150,
somebody's
right? Or 170.
yeah, but if
He's
somebody's
injury
like, hey,
prone.
I'll give you Aaron Judge, give me Juan Soto.
Oh, no way. What? Are you kidding me?
Okay,
Not even
give me
close.
Matt Olson. Matt Olson for Aaron Judge. Who are you taking the rest of the year?
Probably Matt Olson.
All right, Corbin Burns, Aaron Judge. One's a pitcher. It's volatile. They get hurt.
Yeah, depends in a vacuum. Again, I didn't like Judge again to begin with. Again,
The numbers tell you that,
injury.
okay, but that's because that's injury thing. The numbers would tell you that if the numbers truly even out, Aaron Judge should have a 500 on base the rest of the season. You know what I mean?
I'm curious what his underlying stuff is. I'm still probably leaning Burns, but that you're getting much closer. And if you look at his underlying Savant page, it is red. It is very average exit velocity, 97th percentile, barrel percentage, 84th percentile, hard hit, 93rd percentile. Maybe I am buying Aaron Judge a little bit. Super high, 16% walk rate is 96th percentile. We love to see that. Good plate discipline. Maybe I'm gonna go out and buy a share of Aaron Judge. See what I can get for him.
All right. So that's what we'll end it on. Buy
Yeah,
Aaron Judge. That's what we're telling you. All right. Until
for the
next
right
time.
price. Yeah.
Look, I mean, if you talk about things evening out, I think Juan Soto will, stands to reason that Soto will come down a little bit and Aaron Judge is going to be ridiculous. So, like, that's why I said Juan Soto right away, not just because they're on the same team, like it's top of mind, but, like I said, when you're talking about how good Juan Soto has been, and I do think Juan Soto has been, like, he hasn't been otherworldly in the sense that he can't keep this up. You know what I mean? Like, he's been otherworldly in the sense that he's an otherworldly player, right?
Yeah.
But if Aaron Judge is going to be, make up for a month of sucking by having a 5-month like run like we haven't seen, then still it would be better than Juan Soto. That's my point. And then also you have to consider the injury factor. It's an interesting thing. I hope he does turn around. I don't think it's nothing. Like you said, all his like underlying numbers are really good. So that's good to hear. I wasn't sure about that, but Ronald Acuna or Aaron Judge rest of the year. All right, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
he can take Acuna. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it for Vince. I'm Rami. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. See ya.